so often the things that we label misbehavior, it's all happening because a child is overloaded with emotion or they have some need that's not met. And usually it's a need for connection.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 329. Today, we're talking about resolving to be playful with Dr. Lawrence Cohen. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast. Here, it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark Fields. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of the best-selling book, Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back. I am so glad you're here. But listen, if you have not done so yet, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you've ever gotten any value from this podcast, do me a favor and go over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. It helps the podcast grow more, and it will take about 30 seconds. And I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Happy New Year. This episode is the start of a series we're having about resolutions and maybe some better things to resolve to do than stop eating chocolate or whatever you're going to do. And I'm so excited for you to join me in this episode because today I am talking to the great Lawrence J. Cohen. He is a psychologist and author. His books, Playful Parenting and The Opposite of Worry, have been translated into 18 languages. He's also the co-author of The Art of Roughhousing, Best Friends, Worst Enemies, and Mom, They're Teasing Me. And we are going to talk about how we as parents need to lighten up, how roughhousing is really good and can be great for kids, how to play board games with kids, and the importance of free play, among many other things. This is a really very powerful, valuable episode. I know you are going to love Lawrence, and his work has been super influential on me, and I love what he is doing. So without any further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Lawrence J. Cohen. Your book is in its 20-year anniversary. That's amazing.
My baby's all grown up.
It is timeless. It's amazing. Playful parenting has been so influential in everything. So you're a psychologist. When you were writing Playful Parenting, my guess is that you must have been seeing a real rash of like the opposite of that, right? Like that's like really just trying to like serious controlling, lots of like intensive worry, that kind of stuff. Is that what you were seeing that sort of led you to that?
Absolutely. I was seeing all that and feeling all that. And it's all that's even more now. So
you think?
I think that parents are even more anxious. But really the impetus for writing it is that when I was training as a psychologist, I felt like the message we got was these poor children with their terrible parents. Now they would never have said that in those words, my professors, but that's kind of the vibe I got when I was studying this, is these precious children. And unfortunately, they're with these horrible parents who messed them up, and we have to go in and rescue them. And given that attitude, I was not very effective working with children and families. And then I became a father, and I thought, oh, it's hard. It's actually very, very difficult. And I was not prepared for that. And the children are wonderful and they are precious. And it is easy to kind of get it wrong. But parents aren't the evil monsters. And I think that as a society, we haven't really shaken that. We see this all the time. Parents who don't do it like us are wrong. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I would just strongly encourage every parent to do is to stop giving dirty looks to other parents.
Amen to that.
Because we all do it, and we all get the dirty looks, and we feel horrible, or we're either mad or we're embarrassed, and then we give the dirty looks, but we don't know their story, and we don't know. Of course, we don't want them to yell at their children and hit their children, and we want to rush in and protect them, and we feel helpless, and yet, wouldn't a warm, compassionate look and a kind of a, yeah, I've been there, and oh boy, it's hard, and is there anything I can do to help, could probably be more effective than the dirty look. So I think that becoming a parent really helped me see that we're all in the same boat. We've got this job with, everybody says it's the most important job in the world, and yet
no pressure.
no pressure. And yet, if it was really such an important job, wouldn't we be paid and trained? I mean, even jobs that are not seen by society as super important, people get paid for and they get trained for. So I can't do much about the getting paid for, but I think that the getting some support, getting some resources so you don't feel overwhelmed and all alone is really important.
It's kind of like we have as parents, like we have all the pressure of like, your child's future mental health depends on what you do in these first 3 years. I remember thinking like all the things I read about the first 3 years, and it just stressed me out so enormously. And so we have all this pressure, and it leads us to feel threatened, right? Like to feel we are under all this stress, and that stress is a threat to our system, and it's a threat to our child's well-being, and all of that. It goes against what you teach in playful parenting, which is about like loosening up and what we work on in mindful parenting, right? Which is like relaxing that stress response, like being a little less like tight and holding on to every little second and judging ourselves, et cetera. Right. So that's, it's hard. It's hard for us to get to how do
right. And I think it was it was well-meaning advice to pay attention to those first few years and to see that childhood is actually very important developmentally. Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, it came along with this big pressure and this big anxiety, and I think you hit the nail on the head that children pick up all of our anxiety and fear.
And I love what you write about in Playful Parenting, because it's like, it's interesting because there's a lot of things that go along with playful parenting. Like when we approach it from this idea of like kind of getting it right, mm-hmm. I want to get it right and get it perfect. We can kind of add this, we can put this stress and pressure into situations, but you're advocating for parents to loosen up a little. So tell us, give us a little bit of like kind of the basic rundown maybe of what it's all about first.
I think that the essence is starting with connection. If we put connection first and we keep connection as the highest priority, then everything flows from that. And when we're in a state of high alert and high intensity and fight and flight, we don't connect well, because that's not what our nervous system is getting us to do when we're in that state. And when we relax, when we engage, when we see the child and we think about, what's going on with them and how can I get closer, then this puts us in our nervous system in a state where we can connect. Mm-hmm. And the two best ways that I know to connect with children, the first is play, because that's their natural language, their natural world. And the other is emotional understanding. And that's also their natural language. Babies are born with their emotional system completely intact in a big empty space where language is going to fill. So language comes in later. And under stress, under high intensity, even high excitement and joy, language takes a back seat or
Mhm.
disappears, and emotion is in the forefront. So I don't just mean what we call bad emotions or painful emotions, just any emotions. So we connect best with children if we get on the floor and play with them, and if we notice what they're feeling and engage with them in that heart to heart, feeling to feeling way.
I love this because you're describing in a lot of ways what mindfulness is all about, like that idea of moving away from the storyline, the verbal chatter, and
Mm,
touching into what's happening in my body. What are the sensations I'm feeling? What are the emotions I'm feeling? What am I observing? And being less in that cognitive cerebral space, that head
yeah.
space, and more into that heart space, that body space, that observation space. And that's exactly what you're describing right there.
Right. And I think we go so quickly and automatically to this is bad. You have to stop what you're doing. So the child has
Mhm.
to change. The child has to stop. We're not even aware of our feeling. We might not
Mhm.
even be aware that we're angry. We're just aware the child is doing wrong and has to be corrected. And if we can slow that down and it's like, oh, what am I feeling? I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling frustrated. Okay, how can I take care of my feeling? Because that's actually my job and not my child's job.
Mhm.
And we do that tuning in to ourselves. What am I feeling in my body? And is this a feeling I want to run with? Is this a feeling I want to let go of? And then, and only then, turn to the child and see, okay, what do I need to do? And then the question is not stop doing it. It's, okay, now what are you feeling? I've tuned into what I'm feeling. Now, can I see what you're feeling? And so often the things that we label misbehavior, it's all happening because a child is overloaded with emotion or they have some need that's not met. And usually it's a need for connection.
Yeah. I mean, if a child's nervous system is in a stress response, it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
so you're fighting verbally or physically,
Right.
running away, psychologically or physically, and or
Yeah.
freeze. I got very perplexed by my child who freezes. It was
Yeah.
very confounding for me for a long time. And then I was like, oh, she's in freeze. Oh, this is driving
Right.
me bananas.
Exactly. And all the usual stuff we do, logic and language and
Threatening.
threat, and then yeah, threats and upping the intensity. All that's going to increase the freeze or increase the
Yes.
fighting, and then we get madder and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
cycle. And it takes that moment of awareness and stepping off of that cycle. And it's maybe it's a runaway train, but you can hop off the train and oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. You're
Yeah.
upset. I'm upset. Let's take a deep breath. Let's connect. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. So all kind of coming back to the connection. I really love that too, because it's like the idea of kind of stepping out of the role. What you're pointing to is this is like a relationship. A relationship with your child
Mhm.
is like every other relationship. You have to like
Yeah.
see that person individually and in this particular moment,
Yeah.
not the layer of all the labels and all the different things we're putting upon that child, the this one, that one, they've always been like this,
Right.
and get out of that kind of like the role of I am mom, I am dad, I am the parent. I have to
Yeah.
control this situation and just kind of dropping into this like, oh, me, you're you. Let's really be real here. And that's where that connection really happens.
Exactly. And the things we want children to cooperate. We want them to embrace our values. Well, this happens when we have a warm connection. It doesn't ever happen through threats and violence and I'll teach you a lesson, and you've got to learn the consequences of your actions. This is not where a strong moral center comes from. It's not where a desire to cooperate and contribute comes from. That all comes from the warmth and closeness in the relationship. I want to be like you. I want to be with you. I want to help you. Because we're just a warm fuzzy. And the warm fuzzy doesn't mean everything's always happy. And I think sometimes this gets confusing that sure, you can connect with laughter, but when your child is sad, you can connect just as deeply, maybe more deeply, by being with them when they're sad, not desperately trying to cheer them up, not telling them, well, it's your fault, you should have known better, but just saying, oh, yeah, that's really hard. Oh, yeah. You wish that had happened differently.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because, the idea of being playful sometimes is like, oh, people think I have to put a playful face on everything. And
Right.
that's not true. You may not be in a particularly playful mood. And if you start to like make a joke, your child's gonna be like, boop, BS meter just like shooting off the
Right.
charts, and
Right.
it's not gonna land.
Yeah. And I think you can make a joke as long as you acknowledge the truth and the reality. And so if you're pretending everything's fine, oh, my sweet little child. Um, I had this friend who would always, whenever she was angry or frustrated with her children, she would say, sweetie. And there was this voice, and it's like, sweet. So now this becomes like this high alert word. It's like a code word for you're in trouble, sweetie. But you can say, I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
The volcano's getting close to erupting here. And so you're being truthful about your feeling, but you've got a light, just a little lightness about it, so that you're honest, because children, like you said, read right through emotional dishonesty, and it confuses them. But you can be honest. I call it being honest about your emotions with the volume turned down. So
I
you can
like
turn down the
that.
volume by saying, I'm a little bit angry, because you don't have to say, I'm going to kill you. No, that's not helpful. But you also don't have to say, oh, I can't say I feel like killing you, so I better say, oh, sweetheart.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go all the way to pretending. So instead we go to, ooh, I'm getting a little bit angry.
Yeah, we can be
And then
honest about it.
it's our feeling, and so we can go take care of it. So it's like, oh, I'm starting to get a little hot. I'm going to go splash some cold water on my face. And then you come back and say, oh boy, I splashed cold water on my face and I talk to myself in the mirror a little bit and I feel better. So I think often children see us in a bad state, or, really angry or out of control. And then we recover, which is great, but it's a big mystery. And then it's like somebody coming here and replacing my mom and dad with, a different one, and then the old one back. And so it's really great role modeling to say, I'm going to go take care of this feeling. And then you do, and you come back, and you say what you did.
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh, this is the same person. Emotions come and go in people. And, oh, there's things you can do when you're completely overloaded and you're up at 10, or up to 11, whatever emotion that is. It's not the end of the world. I don't have to just freeze. I don't have to lash out.
Yeah. The middle path of going through it. And you're right. Like that modeling, like they don't need us to be like perfectly happy, calm people constantly. They actually need us to do that kind of thing. So, they need us to get angry and then see how we take care of it. They need us to to watch all that stuff, right? Like that's necessary.
Right.
So so playful parenting is all about that connecting, which I love.
Mm.
And you have a number of great chapters. I tell people, and I love the ideas because we get so caught up in like, I want to do it right. I want to just like, and so we're in this kind of like tighter, constricted place, and so it helps to have some ideas to think about how to be playful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the just brilliant ways is that you just offer these ideas. And one of the things you talk about is learning to roughhouse, which I think is so
Yeah.
funny because we tend to be so like just I don't know, we want to teach our kids to emotionally regulate, we want them to be calm and things like that. So it can be very
Right.
very just not going in that sort of energetic space. But I love
Right.
this. I love the roughhousing, and I know often like mindful mindful mama listeners or mindful parenting people may be kind of surprised by this piece. So I'd
Yeah.
love to talk if you could talk about that first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So calm is a great goal, but we can't always get from overloaded, bouncing off the walls, to calm. And we also, I think, we crave calm because we have this chaotic inner world in our heads, and we have this chaotic world that we live in. And yet, a world that's entirely calm every minute would be kind of boring.
Yes.
So I think the road to calm, an unexpected, surprising road to calm, is through roughhousing and high activity, energetic play. And also, life is more fun when there's this kind of high intensity, energetic play. Um, so I want to share a few simple games that might help people get started if they're nervous about it. Because a lot of parents feel like, oh no, this is dangerous, or it gets out of control, or I don't like it, it's violent. So first of all, I think of a good roughhousing is more like dancing than like fighting.
Hmm.
So even if you're play fighting, it's more like dancing because you're really tuned into one another.
Hmm.
If you're pillow fighting, if you're wrestling, it will go very well if you really tune in to your child and you match their energy. And so you're not, if they're in a quieter, softer spot, you're not pounding them. If they're really want to go all out, you're not saying, oh, why don't you just tap me with the pillow as light as you can. You got to match them and find their energy and match them. If play fighting is too hard for you to start, then there's a game called the sock game that I really love, which is you can play with two people, but the more you have, the better, like up to 4 or 5 people. You have your socks on and your shoes off, and you all sit on the floor and the feet in the middle. And 1, 2, 3, go. And you try to get everyone else's socks off while keeping your own socks on. So everybody's pulling each other's socks off and trying to hold their own socks on. And it's impossible to do this without laughing and laughing and laughing. Another great game that's not like fighting is it's called pushing hands. And you start out, there's a part called force field hands. So you have your 2 hands out, and the child has their 2 hands out, and they're almost touching. And your hands are almost touching their hands, like about a half an inch apart. And you notice what you feel.
Mm.
Now, some children will skip this step because it's just too exciting and they want to start pushing your hands, but that's
Mhm.
okay. But if they're into it, then you notice, and it's often warm or tingly. And that's the force field or the energy field between you.
Mm.
And then that's cool. And that really, really helps this tuning in process, which is such an important part of connection. And then you push the other person back and forth. You push each other using just the energy field between you.
Huh.
It's kind of an amazing feeling. And then the next step, you press your hands together and you push harder and harder, but you match each other's push exactly. You match the force. And so I'm pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm not going anywhere because I'm pushing exactly the same. on both sides. And this is a cool feeling. And then if you want, you can add in a little element of competition where then you try to push the other person out of the room or out of a circle. And so you kind of go step by step through that. And
That's so
so,
fun. I love that. Like the combination of those two would be like when my brother and I were little, we used to like lie on opposite sides of the couch
Mhm.
and have our feet meet in the middle
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
see who could like straighten their legs.
exactly. That's a great game. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And I think that when we do this, when children do it with each other, it can either go well or it can not go well, right?
Mm.
And so it's great when it goes well when children do it with each other, but sometimes one is stronger and doesn't hold back, and it can get out of hand. So it's great for parents to do this with children because we can hold back our bigger strength and let children win, let them conquer us. And this really helps them develop that moral sense that we take care of people who are smaller than us, that we don't go all out. Um,
Mm. Hmm.
um,
Do you recommend that we let kids win in games? Because I really, at least in board games, I had a hard time. I was like, I'm
yeah,
not let my child win. I want to like win
yeah,
this Candyland.
yeah. I think I don't say let them win. What I say is it's okay to let them win. It's some parents are afraid of this. This is, oh, their peers are not going to let them win. It's like, right, their peers probably won't. So let them build confidence at home if that's what they need. I think if we really tune into children, they'll give us signals of whether they need to win at home to build up confidence or whether they're ready for that kind of challenge.
Mm.
So when I remember when I taught my daughter to play ping pong, um, at first it was just too discouraging, and I would let her win a bunch of points and just to build up her confidence. And at some point, just so she wouldn't quit. And then at one point she said, "Are you trying your hardest?"
Ooh.
And I said, "Do you want me to try my hardest?" And she said, "How about half your hardest?" And
Oh.
so this is a signal that she wanted to shift. She had gotten all the goodies from um, being allowed to win. And then she wanted to see, okay, how good am I really? But
Mm.
she wasn't ready to go all the way. She wanted to go halfway, which is not easy to do.
I
Um,
bet.
but I think children will give you the signal. So if children cheat at games, this is not a moral failure. This is not a time to panic that your child is a sociopath and is going to end up in prison. This is just a signal that their need to win in this moment is more powerful than their need to for fairness and um,
Mm.
all that stuff. And so when children cheat at games, what I do is say, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. I can't, I just thought you were over here and here you are over there." And I do it with a big smile. So I let them know they're busted, but it's okay. And if these are the rules they want to play, then these are the rules they want to play. And that's fine. And I remember with my daughter playing Monopoly, sometimes I would say, "Do you want to play the regular rules that are on the box, or do you want to play Emma rules, but Monopoly?" And sometimes she'd say, "Let's play the real rules." And sometimes she'd say, "Oh, Emma rules," and then Emma rules is like, "Oh, I landed here. I get $500 extra." It's like, "Oh, okay." Um, and so it's really about the child's need. And often we get hung up on what the child needs is to be toughened up, to be prepared for the cold, cruel world. Well, I don't think that that's what children need. Children need connection and confidence, and they need to know they have a safe home base, a safe place to come home to, and a person who always has their back. And to say it's not fair to let them win. Well, it's not fair. I mean, I've been playing Monopoly for, you know, 30 years at that point, and so is that fair to play by the regular rules against somebody who's played it twice? So,
That's true. And my husband, he likes to play Go, which is this
uh-huh,
Chinese
uh-huh,
game with these tiles. He's really, really good at it.
yeah,
And but it's a accepted practice in Go that if you're playing against somebody who has less experience than you put some of their stones down on the board already. It's a
Mhm.
built-in handicap system.
Yeah.
So just
That's great.
as a point to, towards that.
Exactly. Exactly. Because what's the goal is not to humiliate people, right? The goal is to learn. The goal is to get better. The goal is to
Have fun,
feel
connect,
powerful, to
right?
have fun. Right. Right.
I love that, this idea of kind of prioritizing this a safe harbor, like this, just making your home kind of that that safe place from which to go out in the world, and kind of thinking about meeting your child's needs in that space, and games can be a way to do that. I don't
Mhm.
I might have missed the boat on we're not games. That's okay.
Yeah.
We did play. I think it was you, to kind of go back to roughhousing. I think
Mhm.
it was in Playful Parenting that you recommended, like, try to, like, get past me or something like
Yeah.
that as a
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
to 'cause we did some of that. Talk to me about that, because we had a good time playing Try to Get Past Me.
Well, this is a fun game because it really activates children's problem solving and also their physical strength. And so you stand in front of like you can do it in front of a chair or a couch, and you can't get past me. And the child's trying to get past you to the couch behind you. And often at first, children will use tricks. So they'll say, look over there, and they'll go around you. Um, and I like to really exaggerate this and ham this up. And it's like, oh, you went around me, I'll lean over this way. And then, of course, they go around that way. And then it's like, oh, I'll have to crawl for both sides. So I spread my arms and legs wide. And then, of course, they crawl underneath. Um, and we just like we were saying before about the board games, you want them to work for it, but that you want them to have that sense of pride and accomplishment by outsmarting you. And then after a while, I like to say, no more tricks. You're going to have to really use your strength to get past me. And for a lot of children, they really need more practice using their full strength.
Hmm.
And girls need this because they're told so much to be nice and to be cute and to be pretty, and they're not told to be strong. Boys often need this because they have been taught to be violent, right? All these images of male violence that are all around us, and so I always tell boys, or sometimes girls too, who hit, if they hit, then it's no hitting, just pushing. It's a very different emotional and physical experience to push someone out of the way than to
Mm.
hit them. And so you have to tackle me, you have to push me, but no hitting.
Mm.
Um, and so then they have to use their physical strength to get you out of the way. And if children are more timid or they're new to this, then the littlest touch and I fly over and fall over.
Mm.
And then they have to work harder, and that touch doesn't do it. They have to push harder, and then they have to push really hard, and then they have to use all their strength, but eventually they get me.
Mm.
As children get older, there's a game that I really love that help children with whatever they're struggling with. And most children have something that they're struggling with. Um, and that is to use the word tackle, the pun on the word tackle, because we tackle a person, like in football, and we
Mm.
tackle a problem.
Mm.
It's a thorny problem, we tackle it. So I'll say, I'm the math problem. You have to tackle me. And I was like, you'll never get me. You'll never get me. I'm the big math problem. And then they have to use all their strength to tackle me and get me to the ground. And then they feel so powerful. Or I'm the school bully, or I'm anxiety. Oh, yeah, I'm your anxiety. I make you worry. I make you nervous. You're weaker than me. And you want to activate that inner strength. And then they tackle you. And then the roughhousing is joyful in itself. And it also has this deep healing property of symbolically representing their overcoming an obstacle.
Yeah. As you do it physically, it's like your body enacts this thing. That's really beautiful. Yes. So parents, don't be afraid of roughhousing.
Right.
It's good for kids to roughhouse, and they need it,
It's
and they
not
need to
just
they need to
boys, it's not
experience like
not
safe roughhousing, right? I mean, like safe
yeah.
wrestling, safe, like knowing that not all physical contact is. I mean, I guess,
Exactly. As children get older, what is the message? That physical contact is either sexual or violent. And I think our boys and girls need to know that there's a whole range of physical contact that's not sexual and it's not violent, that it's playful, it's affectionate, it's fun, our bodies are for all kinds of things. I think that sometimes at schools you see this where there's been some um, too much pushing and shoving and kids hurting each other. So they make a rule the children can't touch each other, period. And this is a terrible response. It's a real problem, but the real response to the problem is how do we learn playful ways to connect with each other? And how do we stop being violent? Not how do we just never touch one another?
Mm, mhm. So what's your stance on tickling, Lawrence? My dad
Ah,
was a big
tickling. Oh, I'm glad you
tickler.
asked that. Well, I think that there's some we've got to get our terms straight. So if we're talking about a quick little poke like "Ah," like where you barely touch the child or don't even touch the child, or it's a very, very tiny touch,
Oh, I
you
love that.
stop.
I'm not tickling you. I'm not
Yeah, I'm
tickling
not
you.
tickling you. Then I think this is great. It gets a lot of laughter. It's great connection. You're really tuned in. Holding children down and tickling them, poking them really hard in the ribs and forcing that laughter, this overwhelms the nervous system. It's really not good. It seems connecting because the child's laughing, but the child's inner experience is out of control. And my body's betraying me because I want to be saying stop. And often, in fact, children are saying stop, but the adults ignore it because of the laughter. So
Mm,
they listen to the laughter, which means keep going. They don't listen to the word stop, but we have to reverse that. And whenever a child says stop doing something,
yes.
we stop.
Yes.
Um, and even if they're not saying stop, then that holding down and that out of control feeling is not helpful, not healthy. I often see kids who have trouble regulating, and then I see a lot of tickling when the parents do play. And then the children don't say, don't do this, or I don't want to play because they crave the contact. And if this is the
Mm,
only way the parents know how to be playful, then the children are going to say, let's tickle, let's tickle, let's tickle, because they really want that playful contact.
mm.
But they will want it even more if you do the pretend tickling like you were describing. Here I come, and you don't actually touch them. Because then your nervous system is not overwhelmed.
Uh,
Um,
Yeah.
so it's a hard one because it's kind of many people's go-to for let's get this playfulness revved up,
Mm, mhm.
but let's find other ways to get that laughter revved up.
So what about like things that parents aren't usually that into? Like when
Oh
the
yeah,
child wants you to like play pretend and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I
oh
just
yeah.
cannot get into this."
I just spent an hour doing this with my granddaughter this morning, and it's not my favorite.
An
It's not
hour.
my
Wow.
top
I'm
10 ways
impressed.
to do this. Ways to spend my time. So I think I couldn't do an hour when I was a parent of a young
Mm,
child. So, being a grandparent is a whole different story. But um, I think setting the timer
mhm.
and set the timer for 10 minutes and do this game you hate enthusiastically for 10 minutes. And you might even find that when the timer goes up, you don't want to stop because your enthusiasm actually changes your experience of it.
Mm, mhm.
You can also, I had a lot of success with this, which is I'd spend time in a really silly, goofy way, complaining and moaning and whining about doing this. Like, oh, not Ariel, the Little Mermaid again. Please, can we play anything else? No, we're playing Ariel, the Little Mermaid. Okay, fine. Can I be somebody who sleeps here in the corner, part of the game? No, you have to play. You have to be Prince Eric. It's like, okay, so I've gotten my true feelings kind of out onto the table, but in a funny way. That's part of the game. So I think we just give ourselves a gentle push to play these games we hate. And the purpose is not because we love these games. The purpose is for connection. And we don't get to decide what counts as connection for our children. So this is a really very key point, that our job is to remember the importance of connection, but not to say this is the only way we're going to connect. We're going to connect by sitting at the table and having a conversation. Well, that might not be the child's way to connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I say in mindful parenting, is set a timer for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's long enough for a child and short enough for an adult that you're not going to like go bonkers. And it's like it's that connection. I love the analogy of the relationship bank account. You're putting those deposits in your relationship bank account, and you can bring this attitude of kindness and curiosity, like to this moment, like you can bring that all that mindfulness to this moment. So I suffered through those moments of Candyland. They were doing some good, I suppose.
Yeah.
When do we want to kind of step in? And if we what are some signs if we're seeing, like, is there a way that play can kind of go bad or go wrong? I mean, I guess between siblings, right? We can see that, but
sure. I think that short breaks are really the solution to, and it's kind of being tuned in to the timing. So with roughhousing, some people experience roughhousing gets out of control, so they don't want to do it anymore. Instead of banning it, what I recommend is every minute or two, you say, freeze, okay, go. So you're pillow fighting, or you're fake wrestling, or you're running around. Freeze, okay, go. And the freeze is very short. And even if the children don't freeze, it doesn't matter. You freeze in a funny position, and they'll notice that. And then you, instead of rev up, it's rev up, cool down, rev up, cool down, rev up, cool down. And so it doesn't get out of control as easily. So, and you can do this about with children playing. So children, friends or siblings. If you start paying attention, you'll notice that, it goes great for an hour and a half, and then boom. It's often very consistent with the same playmates, whether it's
play
siblings,
fatigue has hit.
Yeah, with some pairs, it's 10 minutes, right? And so you if you notice this, then if it's 10 minutes, then at 7 minutes, you go in and say, who needs a hug? Who needs a snack? And you reset the clock. If it's an hour and a half, then it's like, okay, let's have play dates be an hour with this pair. So you can just be tuned in to the time and not have to make this drastic thing and say, it always ends up in fighting. This is terrible. So we can step in, but to step in lightly. So those are ways to step in preventatively. You go before, that's always better if you can prevent it. If you've missed that and you've got conflict, then the metaphor I like is to be the sun. When children are fighting, they will invite you to be the referee or the judge. But they don't actually want a referee or judge. but they will pull you into that position, and you might come running in, and you might want to really like that position. Oh, take turns. Oh, do this. Oh, who started it? But it's very rare to everybody feel happy at the end when you've been the judge or the referee.
And when you've been told what to do, no
Yeah.
one ever loves that either.
Yeah. And so instead you come in and you're the son. Oh, look at everyone. Oh, look at these precious children having such a big fight. And oh, there's only one of these toys and you both want it. Oh, I think I'm going to take it. Oh, no wonder you fight over it. It's so wonderful. Even the two of you cooperating together can't get it away from me. So you've got this lightness, and now you've invited the hostility to come at you in a playful way instead of at each other in a real way. And so you're just the son. It doesn't matter who started it. Doesn't matter who punched who. I mean, at one level, of course, it's different to get punched than to punch. But at another level, both these children are suffering. A child who punches and a child who gets punched are both suffering. They both need love. They both need a reset, a connection. They both need to know that you care about them. And so some of us have a real bias towards, I got to rush in to protect the younger one, or I've got to comfort the one who's crying and give a dirty look to the one who made the other one cry. But siblings and friendship stuff is much more complex than that. And so they just all need, all these children need our love and respect and warmth.
I don't know what I hear you talking about sort of underneath this is this stance of like holding it lightly, you know, this idea, I mean, kind of circling back, I suppose, to the beginning of sort of holding things a little bit more lightly. And that requires us to kind of shift our frame, our lenses, ourselves to kind of holding things lightly. Oh my gosh, I want to hear, like, I want you to tell me about like every single play game that you've ever written about, but I know we don't have time for that. But I just think it might be helpful. And I realize that maybe we should have talked about this in the beginning, but I would like to just kind of circle back to kind of what some of the things that underscore this. And that is, you know, the importance of free play. Like where our kids are often, we've got 3-year-olds going to soccer camps and 5-year-olds going to soccer camps, and we're getting them into organized sports when they're really little.
Right.
And what I advocate is like letting the little ones have more free play. And as they get older, my girls are 11, 14 now, I want them in some organized activities now, because that's what they need, But so I know this is kind of like was supposed to be at the beginning of our conversation, I suppose, but could we maybe talk about this at sort of towards the end, why this is so important?
Yeah, there's really been a disappearance of free play, and it's really crucial. So children's self-directed play is very powerful because this is how they're learning to make decisions and have goals and follow through with their goals. We want them to have that, but we do that by telling them their goals and telling them they have to follow through and punishing them if they don't. That's not the way to learn it. The way to learn it is to have a goal in play and to achieve it. And if you don't achieve it, you go back to it. Children who have lots of free play, they do more and more complex things in their play, and they set themselves their own challenges and problems. And with some children, it's building things, and with some, it's exploring, and with some, it's pretend and dramatic play and figuring out social things. So they need that opportunity. We want them to focus. We want children to focus. And what do? We say, don't do what you're doing. Do this instead. So we're undermining focus. And we want children to get along with each other. And unfortunately for us, in order to learn to get along, children need to argue. And this is one of the biggest reasons to not put young children into organized sports, like you were saying, is that children on the playground doing free play will argue about the rules of games. and they'll argue about the rules, they'll argue about who's in, who's out. I tagged you, no, you didn't. And adults hate this argument. Adults want to come in and just say, no, you didn't hit him. That's it. But this deprives children of crucial problem-solving skill development. It robs them of moral development. So this is, we've known this over 100 years because Piaget observed this in Switzerland on playgrounds over 100 years ago, that children's moral development is rooted in this playground discussions and arguments. And when everything is an adult referee and an adult coach and adult decisions, and stop arguing, sit down, the ref told you were out, you're out. This deprives children of something really, really crucial. And it also deprives them of this joy that comes from being more self-directed. And I think that you're right, that at some point, and I don't know exactly what age it is, but I think it's later than most people are doing it, then it's, okay, I want something with more structure. I want to have the team. I want to have the rules. I want to have the coach. I want to have this external structure. But still need the free play. So I'll give one more plug for free play, and that is there was this fascinating study. There was a group of young children, and they were given an instrument. I think it was a violin. But I'm not remembering the details too well. But the essence was, one group was given the instruments, and they were told, "Okay, don't touch it yet. I have to show you the right way to do it." And the teacher gives all the instructions of the right way to do it, and then they do it. And the second group, it's, here, do this. Oh yeah, here it is. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. And they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it. And then they learn the proper way to do it. And it's the second group that ends up more proficient. They actually end up doing it better because they had that opportunity of free discovery, that it's this different brain currents that are happening when you're in free play, when you're doing that kind of discovery, and you have a joy and you have a deeper learning. And so it really goes the opposite to what many of us think, which is that the more instruction, the better.
I love it. I love it. We're turning off. Like I feel, I'm like hearing like the want Charlie Brown parents being shut down. Oh my goodness. So there's so much in playful parenting that, dear listener, that, you have to check it out, because we hardly got to touch on everything at all by a long way. There's ways to be playful with discipline and with siblings, and I love your suggestion to be like a bumbling idiot sometimes and just be like, how do we get out of the park? Oh, is this how we get out? And you bump into a tree. I mean, there's so many wonderful, wonderful suggestions in your book. I bet you must be a fun grandparent. I wish you were my.
I'm pretty fun. I get grumpy sometimes, but I'm pretty fun.
But I imagine, just, I guess, looking back, I guess that's my final kind of question. Now you're a grandparent, your kids have kids. You wrote Playful Parenting. You must have practiced it a bit at home, even if you were as perfectly imperfect as we always are at the things that we teach. Have your kids ever talked about it, or what? I mean, were things pretty fun? Tell me give me a little bit of the bigger picture here.
Yeah, well, my daughter used to say, kind of half jokingly, like, you never had time to play with me because you were busy writing Playful Parenting.
Thanks. Oh, they always find the way to just set you right there, right?
But she said something very interesting when she went to college. She came back for Thanksgiving, her first year in college, and she said, why couldn't you just punish me? I was like, what? She said she was talking with the other girls in her dorm, and they were talking about, being how they were parented. And she said, we had to have these meetings on the couch and we had to talk about things. And, my friends, they just got punished and it was it, and then they got their phone taken away and then they get it back and they never had to think about what they did. you know, and, she was joking, but it was really interesting. It's like, because so many people would think that this is soft if you don't punish children, that you're too soft. And then the fact is that with the punishment, it goes in one ear and out the other. And she's letting me know that, when we would talk about it and the focus is on reconnection when something has happened, then it goes in deep and you really have to think about it. And it's actually more work that way. But this is the important moral work of growing up. Yeah, I think with my stepson, I met him when he was 10, and we really connected over wrestling. And he was not pulling any punches because he was checking me out and testing me out. So his mom, my wife, she couldn't be in the room because we were both careful not to hurt each other, but he really wanted to take it to the edge. And I learned to say "ow" before anything hurt. So then he would pull back and stop when I said "ow." But he was really strong and he knew karate, and but it was a higher intensity wrestling than I had done with my daughter, and I think we really, we used that kind of play. It was still playful. It wasn't violent. It wasn't. We weren't out to hurt each other, but it really kind of got to know each other better, the deeper level through that.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I just want to thank you for,
Yeah, you bet.
everyone should go out. Playful parenting is 20 years old, but it's perfectly just appropriate for this day and age. And I highly recommend it. And I just want to thank you, Lawrence, for not only coming on the Mindful Mama podcast, but for also like doing this work, for laying it out there, for telling us like how we can be more playful. It's not that obvious to some of us, especially when we're so stressed out about getting it right. And that playfulness can seep in slowly over time, that attitude. And I think that I've been incredibly influenced by the work you've done, and it's really helped so many people around the world. So I just want to thank you for what you've done, and thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Thanks, Hunter. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and greetings to everyone listening. Happy playing.
What a light in the world, isn't he? I love how Lawrence talks about how we need to lighten up, right? Like, this is so important. We need to bring that sense of lightness, right? We have to live what we want our kids to learn. Oh, it's so always so true. If you love this episode, please do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it at Mindful Mama Mentor. And you might as well follow me there and fill your feed with mindful parenting inspiration that will support you in your social media wanderings. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you more peace and presence and joy with your kids this week than ever before. And remember, you can always begin anew. I can't wait to connect with you again next week. Talk to you then. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And just, I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You'll be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.